Hi there, Scott, ROCKFILE, back with another podcast review for your ears. Let's talk about Avatar, The Way of Water. Straight up opinion here, just mine. I think James Cameron has made some of the best action, adventure, semi-fantasy movies of all time. Terminator 2, Aliens, The Abyss, even True Lies. Not the TV show, the movie. I'm very entertained by a James Cameron movie almost every time. And the original Avatar I saw in the theater. It is one of the very few movies who I feel needs to be seen in 3D. Most 3D movies are post-converted. There's a few over the last few years that have been filmed in 3D, but Avatar was conceived in 3D for the idea of 3D, the first movie and this movie and the rest of them. Now, I enjoyed it back in the day. I own the collector's edition with all the different versions. I really don't go back to Avatar that much. It's a good flick. I mean, I don't, you know. I noticed I didn't mention Titanic earlier. I think that's a fabulous film, but it's not one of my favorite James Cameron films. I like it better when he's got less drama and more action. And these 2.5, 3 hour long movies need to justify their existence. So when this was playing in theaters, we had 3D showings here in Kenai, Alaska. I meant to go see it in 3D because I just wanted that experience, but I haven't seen a 3D movie here yet. I don't know how well the projection is here. Haven't tried it, but eventually maybe I will. This was probably my opportunity, and I missed it. I wish I had seen it in 3D in the theater now that I've watched it at home in 4K. This is a better movie. Say what you will about the first one. It plays out like a tech demo with a skeleton plot. This feels a little bit more fleshed out. Granted, you need a little bit of that backstory. They don't go into great detail on the avatars and what they are and how they're made. They kind of toss it off with a line or two, and we get to see some, and that's about it. There's a few other things that happen in the first movie that you really do have to see the first movie. But overall, like, I didn't upgrade the first movie into 4K because I really am not that interested in going back to it, but I wanted to see this one. So I picked it up in 4K and really enjoyed it. It's a movie I will watch again for nothing more than it's a 3-hour tech demo. It is amazing and should be praised for the achievement that it is. But more than that, it's a decent film. It's a good movie. It's a good story. And if it didn't have the good story, well, then it wouldn't have made all that money that it's made because special effects only take you so far. Now, I'll get into some specifics, but I'm not going to get into spoilers. That will be saved for a later one. But the short version is, I think this is a better movie than the first one. I think you should see it. I think some of the messages are a little heavy-handed, as they have been in the last couple of James Cameron movies, but I could have used a few less bonding scenes, bonding with creatures, bonding with the planet. They could have moved 20, 30 minutes. Probably could have been cut, but I don't know specifically where because it did tell a full story. And I sat down with it. I had plenty of time. It was one of the longest nights of the year as far as sunlight goes, but it was raining and it was cloudy and I really couldn't go out into the beach and go do anything. So I'm like, what am I going to do? Because I'm certainly not going to go to bed early. My body knows that the sun is up. So let's watch a 3-hour and 12-minute movie. Well, it's about 3 hours because the credits are about 11 or 12 minutes. So getting into it, again, I won't get into spoilers. It tells a similar story to the first one. The mining colony, the mining company and the bad guys come back to exploit the world, and they want to fight against it. I wish we'd had a little bit more explanation. I mean, in all honesty, the humans got their asses kicked and got sent back to Earth by the Na'vi, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they come back and try it again. That seems a little weird and expensive. But again, they get into why this happened, but the connective tissue between the first movie and the second movie, other than some of the same characters, there really isn't much. You know, they've kind of come up with a new MacGuffin and a new idea for all of this to happen. And then after about 40, 45 minutes of in the world we expect and doing the things you expect, then it takes you to the rest of the movie, the way of the water part of the film. In the beginning, when you start watching it, you're feeling like you're watching a Pixar animated film. It's incredibly well done. I don't mean to downgrade it. It is one of the most beautiful films. Every single frame in the movie is incredible to look at, just spectacular. Like, obviously, they had years to work on this, but literally freeze frame the Blu-ray or the 4K anywhere in the movie, and you have a great screenshot, a great picture. It is some of the best computer-generated animation that we've seen, some of the most realistic, some of the best motion capture. But again, the first 20, 30 minutes, there's no other humans in the movie. We stay on the Na'vi. We begin on the Na'vi. We stay there until they eventually start adding humans. And then you eventually realize how great and seamless the special effects are, because now they are mixing real live action with animated stuff, and it looks incredible. The whole movie looks flawless. If it doesn't win the Academy Award for Best Special Effects, I don't know what would. The effects in Dungeons & Dragons were good, but they weren't earth-shattering. Some of them were just okay. Some of the other movies I've seen lately, a lot of the Marvel movies have decent CG, but it's not anything that hasn't been done before. This is kind of something that hasn't been done before. And again, wish I had seen it in 3D. If you still have a 3D player and a TV, I had a 3D player, and we never used it back when I had one. Had a nice plasma that did 3D, had a 3D Blu-ray player, had several 3D movies. Watched a couple of them. It was always fine. It just wasn't the same 3D effect you got in the theater. It was fine. And now I'm in these Blu-ray forums, and people are, you got to buy it costs $33.95 to buy the movie on 3D Blu-ray, or $34.95 to buy it in 4K. Now, it was conceived in 3D, filmed in 3D, and the movie is spread out over 2 discs when it's on Blu-ray, but the whole movie fits on 1 disc in 4K. I will say I don't think I missed that much, but again, knowing what the first Avatar was to a 3D film, I'm sure this one was spectacular. It is spectacular in 2D. The characterizations are better. We get a little deeper. There's a lot of family stuff. Again, my only complaint that added to the runtime is it seemed like we had to see every character bond with somebody or something, with a fish, with the world, with a tree, with another person. Everybody, there was a lot of that before you get to the final hour of, holy crap, this is batshit crazy action, which you expect from a James Cameron movie. I will say, unlike a Marvel movie, it doesn't devolve into just a CGI fest. There's still a lot of humans going on and interacting with everything. And he goes back to some, let's say some water Titanic kind of action of ships flipping over in the water and things like that, which he's an expert at. And he does some things you haven't seen before. All in all, sometimes we're too harsh on these movies. It's not just a pure popcorn movie. There is if you want to say a liberal naturalist message on harmony with the planet and not screwing things up and things like that. And another buddy of mine equated it to like an Indian story. These are the Indians and the cowboys came in. And I'm like, yeah, see, it's that same kind of moral story. The bad guys are really bad. The good guys are really good. And it's not a bad thing. Like, they hit me over the head a little bit with everything has to bond and everybody has to have that time. And whether it be, again, a tree or a fish or the planet or a person. Anyway. That's really my only complaint, because once it got into the story, the family dynamic, the different tribes dynamic, all sorts of things. There were some big surprises in there. I like how they brought back some of the characters differently. That was interesting. And then we get into the last hour that is just action. That's what that's one of the reasons why you got there. But don't think it's, a 2-hour slow burn. There's plenty of stuff that goes on. There's plenty of stuff to see. It's definitely not a boring movie. And I didn't feel the time at all. Really, 3 hours flew by. It was 2 hours into it, and I went, oh, wow, I've still got an hour left, but that wasn't bad at all. I was more entertained by it. I don't know that I still will go back to the first movie. Maybe I'll upgrade it at some point. But really, this is the Avatar experience. I think this is what he envisioned the first movie to be. And he had to make a second movie. He couldn't just remake the first movie, but there's a little of that to this. But it's bigger, it's more, it's deeper, it's more layered. And I got to say, as somebody who wasn't as enamored with a lot of people are as the first one, I'm on board. I'm glad that I bought this one. I'm glad I own it. I'm glad I can rewatch it. And it certainly will be something to show off the TV and the surround sound. It is not my number one pick for Atmos mixes this year, but it's a pretty good mix for a Disney Fox mix. Not super directional, but full. Music sounds good, effects sound good, and it didn't blow my subwoofer out of the floor, which was nice. I'm sure my neighbors appreciated that, because some soundtracks are a bit overblown sometimes. It's a beautiful looking 4K, though. You could get right up to your TV screen and not see an ounce of grain, compression artifacts, anything. I understand that it could have been expanded more space on the disc and have better. I honestly, in watching it, I don't sit that far from the TV. It looked pretty spectacular on my large TV in 4K glory with the HDR on. So I would definitely recommend that's the way to see it if you don't have a 3D setup. If you do have a 3D setup, then get the 3D version. That's probably the way to go. Other than that, I can't really talk a whole lot about it without getting into spoilers. I thought it was a decent story. I liked the characters. Maybe just because it's my current age and where I am in life, but I really didn't want to see a family-oriented science fiction film. And yet, I was entertained for 3 hours and want to see what goes on with the story. So if it converted me, it should convert most people. Do you want to see Fern Gully in space in the water? Well, that's up to you. But it is an amazing achievement from a technical standpoint. It's a decent movie. It's a good movie from a viewing standpoint. So whether you stream it, buy it, or go see it in the theater, I think it's still playing in a few places. Check out Avatar: The Way of Water. You might really like it. It's a lot of people's favorite movie of the year. Not mine, but it's definitely going into my top 10. It's pretty amazing. I was shocked. I'm looking forward to watch it again after I watch all these extras. So pick it up on 4K or 3D would be my recommendations, but definitely, pick up a copy. This is a movie the whole family can watch, grandma can watch. It tells a good story. It's got good morals. It leaves you kind of with a, I want to see what happens next at the end. All in all, I got to give it a thumbs up. Better than the first one. What else could I say? I'm Scott. I'm ROCKFILE. Back with another podcast before too long. Thank you for listening and taking time out of your day to enjoy this. Have a spectacular one.